Hi friends, today we are going to see a new topic, computer, a history of an informative machine. Computer, a history of an informative machine traces the history of a computer and shows how the business and the government were the first to explore its unlimited information processing the potential. Old-fashioned entrepreneurship combined with the scientific know how inspire now famous computer engineers to create the technology that becomes IBM. Wartime's need drove the giant ENIAC, the first fully electronic computer. Later, the PC enabled mode of computing that liberated the people from the room-sized mainframe computer. This third editions provided updated analysis on the software and the computer networking, including the new material on the programming, professions, social networking, and mobile computing aid. It expands its focus on the IT industry with the fresh discussion on the rise of Google and the Facebook, as well as how the powerful applications are changing the way we work, consume, learn, and socialize. Computer is an insightful look at the pace of technology advancement and the seamless way computers are integrated into the modern world. Through comprehensive history and accessible writing, computer is perfect for the courses on the computer history, technology history, and information and society, as well as a range of courses in the field of computer science, communicators, sociology, and the management. Introduction about the computer. This introduction represents an overview of a key concept discussed in the subsequent chapters of this coming book. The book discusses the manual information processing and early technologies and describe the origins of the office machineries and the business machine industries. It is also described Charles Babbage failed attempt to build an calculating engine in the 1830s, and it is realization by the Harvard University and the International Business Mission IBM a century later. The book that discusses the theoretical development associated with Alan Turing. It covers the development of the electronic numerical integrators and the computer ENIAC at the University of Pennsylvania during the war and its successors. The EDVAC, which was the blueprint for almost all subsequent computers up to the present day. The book explores the early development of the computer industry, which transformed the computers from a scientific instruments from mathematical computation to the machine for the business data processing. It examines the development of the mainframe computer industry, focusing on the IBM system per 360 ranges of computer. When computer were used. The electronic computers can be used to combine the roles of human computers and the human clerks. The first attempt to organize the information processing on a large scale using the human computers was the production of the mathematical tables, such as logarithmic and the trigonometric tables. In 1766, the British government sanitized the Astronomer Royal Naval Masculine to produce each year a set of an navigation table to known as an Nautical Almanac. This was the first permanent table making project to establish in the world. Charles Babbage became in the problem of table making and the elimination of the errors in the tables. In the whole of England, there was just one large scale data processing organization that had an organizational technology compatible with the deep Ronnie table making projects. This was the banker clerking houses in the city of London. And the Babbage wrote the only contemporary published accounts of it. The mechanical office. To understand the development of the computer industry and how this apparently new industry was shaped by the past, one must understand the rise of the office machine Janes in the year around the turn of 20th century. Today we use computers in the office for the three main tasks: documents preparation, information storage, and financial analysis and accounting. These were previously the three key office activity that the business mission companies of the late 19th centuries were established to serve. Remington Rand was the leading supplier of the typewriters for the documents preparation and filling the system for information storage. In 1898, Rand organized the Rand Ledger Company, which quickly came to dominate the market for record-keeping system in the large firm. The market development of the mass-produced adding machine followed the development of the typewriting by roughly a decade, and there was many parallels in the development of these two industries. Babbage dream came true. Charles Babbage invented two calculating machines, the different engine and the analytical engine. Of the two, the different engine was historically and technically the less interesting, although it was a machine that came closest to actually being built. Babbage never built a full-scale differences engine because in 1833 he abandoned it for a new invention, the analytical engine, the chief work on which is the famous in the history of computing the rest. The most important analog computer technology of the 19th century from an economic perspective was the mechanical typewriter. One of the first advocates of a team computing the approach was the Englishman Louis Fry Richardson, who pioneered the numerical methodology, the application of the numerical techniques to weather forecasting. Richardson has designed his weather forecasting factory around a team of an human computer because it was the only practical digital computing techniques he knew about based on what he learned of working methods of Notional Almanac Office. Creating the computer. Inviting the computers. Inviting the computers play an important. This chapter shows the way first successful electronic computers in the United States grew out of an observed project in the Moore School of Electrical Engineering at the University of Pennsylvania. In the case of a Moore School, the end in the view was the ballistic computerization for the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland, which was responsible for the commissioning armaments for the US Army. Preceding the World War II, the Moore School was placed on a war footing. The undergraduates program were accelerated by eliminating the vacation, and the school took on the war training and electronics research programs. John Vincent Anadas of discovered a like-minded scientist introduced himself and invited John Mackey to visit so as to see the BC. The extent to which Mochi drew on an antuf of ideas remains unknown, and the evidence is massive and conflicting. Today, computer scientists routines speak out of an von Neumann architectures. In the presence, the more prosaic stored program concept. This has done an injustice to von Neumann co-invaders. The computer becomes a business mission. What really happened in 1950s is that the computer was reconstructed mainly by the computer manufacturer and the business users to be an electronic data processing machine rather than a mathematical instrument. The contract to build an EDVAC type machine for the Census Bureau was signed in October 1946 and the computer officially named as UNIVAC for Universal Atomic Computer. The binary atomic computer, that is BINAC, would be very different order of a mission than the UNIVAC. It would be much smaller. It would be a scientific machine, not a data processor. And it would not use a magnetic tape, perhaps the biggest task in the exert and the Monchi's portfolio. Meanwhile, the international business mission, IBM, the company that was to become Acret and Molyneux prime competitor, and was beginning to respond to the computer. IBM also had two further full-scale computers under the development in 1949, the magnetic drum calculator, that is MDC, and the tape processing machine TPM. Maturing of the mainframe, the rise of IBM. Desk sets we also, however, a remarkably insightful mirror of a key period in the history of an modern computing. Although the name electromagnetic memory and research arithmetic calculator, that is EMERAC, is an obvious play on both the electronic numerical indicator and the computer ENIAC and the UNIAC. The computer manufacturer mostly closely associated with the desk set was the international business mission IBM Corporation. Most of the IBM competitors were obsessed with the design central processing unit or CPUs and tended to neglect the system as a whole. There were plenty of technical people in IBM similarly fixed on the architectures of the computer. Processor were the range. On IBM Technical Manager recall, the origin of the 1401 was the needed to create a transenoized follow-up to the tube-based model 650 magnetic drum computers. The IBM 407, counting the machine remaining the IBM's most important product right up to the end of 1950s. The innovation and the expansion, real-time repeating the real wind. A real-time system is one of that responds to an external message in real time, which usually means within the second, although it can be much faster. The computer industry appropriated a technology first developed for a military purpose in the micro instrumentation telemetry, that is MIT's project RILWIND, a project that in turn grew out of a contract to design an aircraft trainer during the World War II. In August 1949, US intelligence revealed that the Russian has exploded a nuclear bomb and they had possessed the bomber aircraft capable of carrying such a weapon over the North Pole and into the United States. First major civilian real-time project to draw directly on International Business Mission IBM's known how on the technology derived from the semi-automatic ground environmental defense system, that is SAGE. Project was the semi-automatic business research environment airline reservation system developed for American Airline. This software over the sources of the next decade, the cost and the challenges associated with developing the computer programs or the software became increasingly apparent. Even as the computer technology was becoming even smaller, faster, and more reliable, computer software's development projects acquired a reputation for being over budget, behind the schedule, and the bug ridden. Programming a computer is, at its essence, a twofold series of translations. First, the translations of a real world problem into a series of a step known as an algorithm that can be performed by a machine, and second, the translation of this algorithm into the specific instructions used by the particular computer. Flowcharts were intended to serve as the blueprint for the computer programmers, as intermediate step between the analysis of a system and its implementation as a software applications. Although programming languages and the other utilities help the computer users to develop their software more efficiently, programming cost reminded the single largest expenses of running a computer installation. New modes of computing. By the mid 1960s, data processing computers for the business had become well established. Improvised machine and the software enable more sophisticated application, and many primitive batch progressing the system became real time. But data processing still consists of an computing delivered to an Navi users by an elite group of system analysts and a software developer. The mode of computing is associated with the computer time sharing. The basic programming language, Unix, mini computers, and the new microelectronic devices are simultaneously by many users, each person having the illusion of being the sole users of the system, which in effect became his or her personal machine. The best known of a system was the Dartmouth Time, the sharing system DTSS, while the International Business Machine MITS, that is CTSS, was always a system for the computer scientist. Whatever the intention of its designer, the one of the Dartmouth College was intended for use by a much broader spectrums of the users. Getting personal. The shaping of the personal computer. Personal computing was perhaps the most life-changing consumer phenomenon of the second half of the 12th century, and it continues to surprise its ever evolving application and the forms. If the idea that the personal computer was shaped by an interplay of an cultural forces and commercial interest appears nebulous, it is helpful to compare the development of the personal computer with the development of radio in the opening decade of 12th century, whose history is well understood. The enabling technology for the personal computer, the microprocessor, was developed during the period of 1969 to 1971 in the semiconductor from Intel. In the 1970s, the publicity lighted on the computer as the next electronic bandwagon. In January 1975, the first microprocessor based computer The Alligator 8800 was announced on the front cover of Popular Electronics. The Altair 8800 was produced by a tiny Albuquerque, New Mexico electronic kit supplier. The Micro Instrument Telemetry System bordering the appeal. Most new technologies start out the imperfect, difficult to master, and capable of being used only by the enthusiastic early adopters. The personal computer software industry developed in two phases. The first phase, which can be characterized as the gold rush era, lasted from about 1972 to 1982. During this period, barriers to enter were extremely low and there were several thousands of new entrants, almost all of which were uncapitalized 2 or 3% startups. The second phase, which begins about 1983 following the standardization of the personal computer market around the International Business Mission, that is IBM. Compactable Product Code PC was a period of an consolidation in which many of an yearly firms were shaken out. New entrant requires heavy inputs of an venture capital, and a small number of Americans from emerged as the global players. The user interacted with the operating system through a command line interface in which each instruction to the computer had to be typed expectically by the user, letter perfect. The Internet. The Internet plays a vital role in our day-to-day life. In the early, the Internet, the system that links the million of the computers around the world, became the big news. The first English language encyclopedia, the Encyclopedia Britannica, appeared in 1768 and was modeled directly on the encyclopedia. In 1963, with the first Advanced Research Project Agency, ARPA, sponsored, the time-shared computer system became operational. Lick Linder set into an action a program he privately called his Intergalactic Computer Network, publicly known as the ARPANET. Electronic mail have never been an important provider initially, even though the ideas were by no means unknown. For the exciting consumer networks responding to the World Wide Web was a huge technical, a cultural challenge. From the short after the advent of the personal computing, computers has become increasingly mobile. Computers became common every day and everywhere device for the masses only with the advent and growing popularity of the smartphones. Usually in the transformative new era of mobile computing by altering how people communicate, work and socialize. Computer as an revolution left no area of the life untouched in the present world. It is of a tremendous help in the all fields of the life. Hence, the knowledge of a computer is necessary for the existence of everybody in this global village. The invention of the computer has transformed our simple manual works to sophisticated life of automated works to meet the global demands for the higher productivity and increased efficiency with the high precisions. Computers increasingly became compulsory in nearly all fields of studies, not because of anything but it is accuracy and virtuality in processing data. Many tasks at the home or office are being automated rapidly with the computer. Thus it is becoming an apparent in whatever the discipline of working sector. The computer is now a very vital tool for efficiency improvement and the perception of the job or the task exertion. This is designed to meet the prerequisites needs of everybody that are interested and wish to know about the computer science and computing in general. A computer is an electronic device operating under the control of the instructions stored in its own memory. These instructions tell the machine what to do. Computer is capable of accepting the data inputs, processing data arithmetically and logically, producing the output from the processing, and sorting the result for the future use. Most computer that sits on a desktop called as personal computers, that is PCs. The computer is an ensemble of different machines that you will be using to get your job done. A computer is primarily made of the central processing unit, usually referred to as the computer, the monitor, the keyboard, and the mouse. Other pieces of an hardware are commonly referred to as peripherals. In everyday life activity, we process the data or encounter the cases of an data processing. A typical example of the data processing is the generation of the statement of the student result from the marks scored in an examination and continuous assessment. It is an essential to know that the information is as good as the data from which it is derived and the transformation process which they are subjected to. Meaningless data or inappropriate processing produces the wrong information. Thus, the computer gives us the result corresponding to what the data you supply and how you process it. Example, cabbage in has cabbage out. Summarizingly, the intelligent performance of a computer depends on the correctness of the input data and the intelligent performance of the human being that drives it. Uses of the computer. People use the computers in many ways. Business computers are used to track the inventories with the barcodes and scanners, check the credit status of the customers, and transfer the fund electronically. Homes. Tiny computers embedded in the electronic circuitry of the most appliances control the indoor temperature. Operate home security system, tell the time, and turn the video cassette recorder, that is VCR, on and off. Automobile regulates the flow of 1 by 5 fuel, thereby increasing a gas mileages. They also entrain the creating diagnostic sound on stereo system or the computer animated features from a digitally encountered laser disc. Computer programs or the application exist to aid every level of educations. From the program that teaches simple additions or the sentence constructions to the programs that teaches the advanced calculus. Educators use the computers to track the grade and communicate with the students. With computer controlled projection unit, they can add the graphics, sounds and the animations to their communication. Computers are used extensively in the scientific research to solve the mathematical problem, investigate the complicated data or model systems that are too costly or impractical to build, such as testing the airflow around the next generation of the aircraft. The military employs computers in sophisticated communication to encode and unscramble the messages and to keep the track of the personnel and the supplies. History of computing. Since the creation of a man, significant amount of human activities has been aspired to organizing and processing information so that it could be more easily presented for easy comprehension. Many devices has been used in the past before the advent of computer. It is then necessary to vividly look into their evolution. Early computer machine. First, abacus. in 2500 BC. This is a handheld device made of beads strung on a rod in a frame. The rods correspond to the positions of the digit while the beads correspond to the digits. Second, Nefer bones, 2500 BC. This was invented by John Napier in 1550 to 1617. This consisted of a small rod with appropriate marking on them. It is a mechanical aid to the computation that consists of 9 such rods called the bones, with one for each digit 1, 2 through 9. He also invented the logarithm, which made possible to do the divisions and the multiplication by performing addition and subtractions. Third, the slide rule, 1680 by the William Outred, 1575 to 1660. He invented it in 1622 but announced it in 1632. This consists of a rules on which the marketing represents the logarithm of the number and also permit the calculation involving the exponents, trigonometric functions, etc. 4. The Pascal mechanical calculator, 1600, or the numerical wheel calculator, Vasily Pascal, 1623 to 1664. In 1642, invented the first adding machine called the Pasline. The brass rectangular box used 8 movable dials to add and sum up of the 8 figures, losing use base 10. It can perform all the 4 arithmetic operations with the previous unheard speed. Fifth, Leibniz's mechanical multiplier, 1660s. In 1694, Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz, 1646 to 1716, improved upon the Pasline by creating a machine that can also multiply using a system of dials and gears. Sixth, Colmer calculator, 1820, by Charles Xavier Thomson de Comler. This presented a more practical approach to computing. Seventh, punched card machine, Jacquard's Dome, in 1801, Joseph Marine Jacquard. Eighth, mechanical computer, Charles Babbage, 1792 to 1871, father of a computer difference engineer, powered by the steam and a large locomotive. The machine has stored the program and could perform the calculation and print the result automatically. We also have an analytical engine credited to him. 9. Hermann Hollerith, 1860 to 1929. Hollerith system punch card reader machine for counting the census result in 1890s in US. Formed the tabulating machine company in 1896 in TMC. Automatic tabulating machine ATM in 1900. The TMC was renamed to International Business Machine Corporation IBM in 1924 after the series of the mergers. In summary, the history of computing began with an analog machine. In 1623, German scientist Wilhelm invented a machine that could add and with the aid of an logarithmic table multiplies and divides. Since the development he passes through a lot of stages such as the invention of the punch card to program the patterns to create the woven fabrics by the Joseph Marine Jacquard, a French inventor in 19th century. Another early mechanical computer was the different engine, designed in the early 1820s by the British mathematician and the scientist Charles Babbage. In the 1930s, American mathematician Howard Aiken developed the Mark I calculating machine, which was built by IBM. This electronic calculating machine used the relays and electromagnetic components to replace the mechanical components. To be sincere, the world has left the era of hearing the stories about computer. We are now in the world of what you can use it for the serve it desired purposes. Generation of the computers. The history of a computer development is often referred to in reference to the different generation of computing devices. Each generation of a computer is characterized by a major technologies development that fundamentally changed the way computer operates, resulting in increasingly smaller, cheaper, more powerful, efficient and reliable device. First generation in 1940 to 1956 vacuum tubes. The first computer used the vacuum tubes for circulatory and magnetic drums for memory and were often enormous, taking up the entire room. They were very expensive to operate and in addition to using a great deal of an electricity, generated a lot of an heat which was often the cause of malfunctioning. The first generation computer relied on machine languages to perform the operations and they could only solve one problem at a time. Input was based on an punched card and the paper tape and the output was displayed on the printout. The UNIVAC and ENIAC computers are the example of the first generation computing device. The UNIVAC was the first commercial computer delivered to a business client. It was used in 1951 US Bureau Census. Second generation in 1956 to 1963 transistors. Transistors replaced and vacuum tubes and urged in the second generation of the computer. The transistors was invented in 1947 but did not see the widespread use in the computer until the late 50s. The transistors was a vast improvement over the vacuum tube, allowing the computer to become smaller, faster, cheaper, still relied on the punch card for input and printout for output. Second generation computers moved for cryptic binary machine language to symbolic or assembly languages which allowed the programmers to specify the instruction in the words. High-level programming languages were also being developed at this time. Such an early version of the COBOL and the front-end. These were also the first computers that stored their instructions in their memory, which moved from a magnetic drum to a magnetic core technology. The first computer of this generation were developed for the automatic energy industry. Third generation, 1964 to 1971, integrated circuits. The development of the integrated circuits was the hallmark of the third generation of the computers. Transistors were miniatured and placed on silicon chips called the semiconductors, which drastically increased the speed and efficiency of the computers. Instead of the punch cards and the printouts, the user interacted with the third generation computers through the keyboard and the monitor and interfaced with an operating system, which allowed the device to run many different applications at one time with a central program that monitored the memory. Computers for the first time became accessible to the mass audiences because they were smaller and cheaper than the Presiders. Fourth generation, 1971, presents the microprocessor. The microprocessor brought the fourth generation of the computers, as thousands of an integrated circuits were built on to a single silicon chip. What is the first generation filled an entire room, could now fit it in the palm of the hand. In a 1981, IBM introduced its first computer for the home user, and in 1984, Apple introduced the Macintosh. Microprocessor also moved out on an realm of the desktop computers and into many areas of life as more and more everyday products began to use the microprocessor. As these small computers became more powerful, they could be linked together to form the network, which eventually lead to the development of the internet. Fourth generation computers also saw the development of GUIs, the mouse, and the handheld devices. Fifth generation, present and beyond the artificial intelligences. Fifth generation computer device based on the artificial intelligences are still in the development, though there are some applications such as the voice recognition that are being used today. The uses of an parallel processing and the superconductors is helping to make an artificial intelligence a reality. Quantum computerization and molecular and nanotechnology will rapidly change the face of a computer in years to come. The goal of the fifth generation computing is to develop the device that responds to the natural language input and are capable of learning and self-organization. Software and the hardware. Hardware is a term given to the physical components of the computer. Example, keyboard, monitor, system box, or the floppy disk drive. Software, on the other hand, is an electronic information, files, operating system, graphics, computer programs are all example of softwares. The difference between the hardware and the software reflects the duality between the physical and the mental worlds. For example, your brain is hardware, whereas your brain is software. Mind is software. Software is a stuff makes a computer to do things for you. The computer without software would be like a home entertainment system without no tapes, CDs or movies. You have the machine, but there is nothing to play on it. Software is continuously developed. Each time the software maker, Microsoft, Adobe, Corel, etc., develop a new version of the software, they assign it as an version number. Before Microsoft Word 7, there was a Microsoft Word 6.0.1, and before that Word 6.0. The larger the development make to the software, the larger version number changes. Usually a larger changes will result in a whole number upgrade. A small changes may result in tenth of an decimal places. Hardware are those components of a physical pieces, things you can touch, that makes up the computer. The different pieces of the computer's hardware are the monitors, speakers, mouse, CR-ROM, floppy drive, hard drive, keyboard, CPU, RAM, processor, etc. Each pieces play a role in operation of a computer. Different parts of a computer and their uses. Standard computer consists of a monitor, keyboard and a mouse and a system unit. One can attach the accessories such as printers, scanners by the means of ports. Increasingly in the workplace, computers are connected to the printers and other computer by the means of an network. The monitor. This is a visual display unit, VDU. There are various technologies for the display unit. Cathode ray tube, CRT, or liquid crystal display, LCD, or electroluminescent screens or the projector. The monitor or the screen displays your work. Phase it comes down, reduce, reflected the glare from the room light. This reflection may affect your sight. Monitors come in different sizes. The most important size of a monitor is measured diagonally on the screen in inches. Based on this, the monitor ranges in the size of 12 inches, 14 inches, 15 inches, 17 inches, 19 inches, 21 inches, 29 inches, etc. Monitors are also characterized by the flatness of their screens. The flatter and the wider screens are usually the better. the system box or the computer console. The system box is where all the computation that the computer performance takes place. Inside or the CPU processor, the motherboard, the hard disk, any network or the sound card. Memory chip, the RAM, the printer port at the back, and the drive base for the floppy disk, zip disk or the CDs. Outside the casing are the powerful buttons, on and off and restart, with some additional facilities like the casing USB ports, webcams, etc. The keyboard, that is the pressing. This is a basic input device. It is the one of a way you can tell the computer what to do. It consists of a standard typewriter's key as well as a numerical keypad and the function keys. You can use it to give the computer commands, name folders and the files, and type the text in the word processing documents. The keyboard is made of the three main categories of a key, which each used for the different purpose. First, the character keys. These compromises of the letters, numbers and the symbols. They are used to insert the disk, display readable characters on the screen, which is equivalent to the key store pressed. The letter A, B till Z. The numbers from 0 to 9. The other keys are accent, dash, minus, equals, operating square bracket, closing square bracket, backslash, semicolon, single quote, pipe, greater than, lesser than, comma, period, forward slash, question mark, title, exclamation mark, at, pounds, dollars, asterisk, opening parenthesis, closing parenthesis, opening curly bracket, closing curly bracket, and the colon. Second, the action keys. These are not used to type anything. Instead, they cause an action: escape, tab, caps lock, shift, control, alt, backspace, enter, windows, win menu, print screen, scroll lock, pause break, number lock, insert, home, page up, delete, end, page down, power, sleep, wake up arrow, left arrow, right arrow, down arrow, and the space bar. Third, the application dependent key. These are called as functional key. They are F1 to F12. F1 key is usually used to get the help while working in the Microsoft window. The uses of the other keys varies from one application to the another. Eventually, the applications you see will gives you the instructions on what to do and how to use the functional keys. Key combinations. Some keys can be combined to produce an uppercases letter or to access the upper symbols of some keys. Example, the shift and the control key. Keys are also combined for many other reasons. In some situations, you have to press the key simultaneously, which means that you may be expected to press two or more keys at the same time or almost at the same time. In other situations, you may have to press and release one key followed by the other. Shortcuts. A shortcut is a quick action you can ask a program to perform when you press one particular key or a combination of the keys. Some shortcuts are universal or almost that it is the computer response regardless of what application is running. Some other shortcuts depends on what you have on the screen. Some shortcuts are already known to the computer as part of an operating system. Most other shortcuts are set by the programmers of the particular applications you are using. Yet some applications allows you to create your own shortcuts. Some shortcuts are readily obvious and can be seen from the main menu of the applications. Some other shortcut keys are either the part of the Microsoft Windows and can be applied in your programs or not easily displayed. You might have to search the help documentation of the program you are using. The mouse, clicking and dragging. This is another input device used to move a small white arrow pointer, the cursor. But the shape will be changed depending on the context in which the mouse is being used on the screen. By pointing and clicking, you can carry out the commands. The computer may ask you to verify that you are sure to rename a file by clicking on the OK button. A mouse is primarily made of the three parts: the buttons, the handling area, and the sensor, which is rolling object or the light. There are either one, two, or three mouses buttons. By default, a mouse has two buttons, left and right. Most mice nowadays are also equipped with a wheel on the top of a middle button called the scroll button. To use the mouse, first decision you make is to know which of your two hands you will be using to handle the mouse. By default, the mouse is configured to work for the right hand. If you are left-handed, the settings can be changed to suit your need. Start control panel, double-click the mouse on the buttons to tab. Check the switch primary and secondary button check box. You can also change the cursor from the default up left pointing to another, but you should know that it is best determined by computer as it varies from program to program. To change the click the pointer tab, also click the other tab to review the different properties. Note, the expression by the default means if everything is not yet changed from the original or the normal settings. Mouse properties, the dialog box. The tip of a mouse pointer must be positioned on the item you want to use, that is on pointing. To select an item, point to an item and click once. Selection, the left clicking, double clicking the left button on an icon evokes a command or launches an application. Dragging an item, icon, or the other object from one location to the another, position the mouse pointers on the item. Click and hold the mouse buttons left, right, or down and move the items to the new location. Right clicking, that is the right button, evokes a shortcut menu that contains all the action that are related to the item. Some applications, namely program, used to manipulate the text. They are called the word processors, allows you to triple click. On the window machines, there is a left and a right mouse button. Most time you see the left mouse button if you are a right-handed. On some newer Macs, the same features can be used with a single mouse button by holding down the control key as you click on the items on the screen. The peripheral. All the parts we have reviewed so far are usually required for the computer to function. Some other parts not required can also be connected to the computer to complement it. A peripheral is an object attached to the computer to help it perform some necessary assignments none of the other parts can handle. In most scenarios, no peripheral is required, but nowadays it is unusual for a computer not to have a peripheral at all. The most used peripheral are the printer, a digital camera, a scanner, a projector, an external driver such as external CD burner for an old computer, and etc. Disk size conversion chart: bits, bytes, kilobytes, megabyte, and gigabytes. Bit binary digits: a single element in the computer memory that can store neither 1 or 0. Word: 1 byte. 2 byte or 4 byte, depending on the mission. Generally, computer's word length is giving it bits. Hence, we have 8 bits, 18 bits or 32-bit microprocessor computer. Units, which is equivalent to 1 byte is equivalent to 8 bits. 1 kilobyte, that is KB, is equivalent to 1024 bytes. 1 MB is equal to 1024 KB equals 1,24,000 bytes. 1 GB, that is equivalent to 1 crore 24 lakh byte. The types of computers. Analog computers. These systems were the first type to be produced. It is an electronic machine capable of performing the arithmetic functions on the number which are represented by some physical quantities such as the temperature, pressure, voltage, etc. Analogs refers to the circuits or the numerical values that have a continuous range. Popular analog computers used in the 20th century was the slide rule. Digital computer. Virtually all the modern computers are digital. Digital refers to the processor in the computer that manipulates the binary numbers 0 or 1s, which represent the switches that are turned on or off by the electrical current. A bit can have the value 0 or the value 1, but nothing in between 0 and 1. A desk lamp can serve as an example of the difference between the analog and digital. If the lamp has a simple on-off switch, then the lamp system is digital because the lamp is either produced light at a given moment or does not. If a dimmer replaces the on or off switch, then the lamp is digital because the amount of the light can vary continuously from on to fro, off, and all the insiders in between. Digital computers are more common in the use, and will be your focus on discussion. The hybrid computers. This is when a computer makes of both analog and digital components and the techniques. Such computers requires analog to digital and digital to analog converter, which will make an analog and digital data palatable to it. Thank you.